Hi, I'm Amara Hemphill, and I am youth staff at Yup, and I am having an interview with my mother. And um, please start with name, pronouns, church of origin, and favorite treat.
My name is Ayanna Kafi, they, them. My church of origin, the church that really raised me, is the Thurman Hamer Ellington UU Church that used to be a church in Atlanta, technically Decatur, but the Atlanta area. Um, and my favorite treat. I know that you said this before, but I'm gonna go with my cinnamon rolls.
They are delicious. And also, I would love if you made some more at any point in time in life.
I will make some in life.
I bet. Um, so, what do you do in your current UU life?
So I currently am a UUA employee. I work in the Office of LGBTQ and Multicultural Ministries. It's a small office, and we really are centering the identity ministry work within UUism. Uh, my job, outside of just existing and supporting and being a resource, is the Mosaic project manager. So Mosaic is the hub of outward facing anti-racism work within the UUA. Um, there was a call for this by the body, and there was also a real need within the UUA, like in a logistical way. So, there's been so many initiatives, and we needed a way to bring them into one manageable, usable space, a place that you can find all of the links, a space that you can find out if things have been sunset, if things have been moved to different management, if things are even recommended anymore. So that plus brand new things is under the Mosaic Hub.
So, Mama, how did you get into the mosaic, into working with mosaic?
Sure. That is a winding, winding road. um, I guess it all started when I was in elementary school. So the Thurman Hammer Ellington Church, or THE, was a intentionally Black centered UU church. And until I was a teenager, I didn't really understand that UUism was very a different way. So I was the only youth there. I didn't go to other churches, didn't hop around. We just went to THE. So in some ways, ever since the church technically dissolved, but there's still a heart connection with all of us. Um, Ever since that, I've been somehow searching for community that matched my initial impressions of UUism. So I'm a lifer. I'm lifelong UU. I've never really belonged to another faith, although I've dabbled. Um, So when you were, I don't know, let's say 11, um, we I came back to UUism in a very committed way. Um, and I was intent on finding where I fit within the whole. And I really fell into BIPOC centered ministries. So I have been involved in the Blue community a bit. I have been involved in the drum community in a very large way and very committed way. Um, and I've been part of the Finding Our Way Home community, which is incredible. And I feel so privileged to have been on the planning committee twice, led by the Reverend Michael Crumpler, who's my boss. Um, so all of these things combined gave me a lot of lived experience, trust in the community, and a passion for doing work that would impact and be in conversation with the community that I have found, formed, built, joined, all of those things within UUism. So beyond that, there's really just like the technical, like job application stuff. It's like, update your resume, write a cover letter, do interviews, try to be charming. Um, and in a lot of ways, I feel like Mosaic was right place, right time. It's just everything kind of aligned in a way that really worked for my life, for our life, and for the life that we were envisioning together.
Oh, Mama, what's your
Yeah.
youth leadership story?
My youth leadership story. You're gonna have to be more specific.
Yeah, the one about the museum.
Oh, okay. So when I chose UUism for myself.
Yeah, the iconic youth leadership story. Okay.
um, so when I was exactly your age,
Oh,
um,
okay.
I so a lot of people don't realize this about me, but I am naturally very quiet and very introverted. You know this, obviously, but I think people who know me professionally think of me as very outgoing. And it's like, I have the duality in my personality. I'm very, very quiet until I have something to say. Um, so I was feeling I was feeling a need for more in my UU life. I was at a large congregation at the time. It was very white. Um, I was involved in the youth group, loved the youth group, made friends that really shaped me and in turn shaped your life um, in really remarkable ways. Yet I was experiencing leadership in other spaces in UUism that I was not experiencing in my youth group just because of the amount of youth. There was maybe five of us that would show up, and I mean, there had to have been at least 50 of us that were like in the general vicinity of this church. But, it was like five of us showing up, like maybe 10 showing up at an event. Um, so I got word, I have no idea how, but I got word that there was going to be a district con. So I'm talking back in the old days when this was the Mid-South District. Um, oh no, I do remember how. Okay, so there is an ancient technology called the US mail system. And so we would make flyers, and it was very copy and paste. It was like we would be cutting stuff out and like literally pasting them on the page like zines, um, magic marker, and then just copy a whole bunch and send them out to the church list. So we would have envelope stuffing parties, and we would just like send all of this stuff out to every single church. My DRE, Pat Kahn, would just take the mail and just give it to us and be like, this is the stuff that's happening. This is the stuff that's coming. Um, and I actually really love that about her. Like, it seems really casual, but, she always viewed us as like really autonomous people. So she would just be like, here, this is the mail. Read at your leisure. Um, so there was going to be a district con, and this was the con where they would vote for the next district yak, and yak was the youth adult committee. So these are the youth that are like planning cons, doing major organizing. I think in some districts they were called rallies. So cons, rallies, basically the same thing, just a weekend in a church with the buddies. Um, so I just hyped it up to the point that I was probably annoying, and a group of us went. I I have no idea who our um, advisors were that weekend. Yeah, but they were some of like the really trusted ones. We had maybe a group of 10 advisors from just like the Atlanta area churches who would rotate and volunteer to do this stuff with us. Um, oh, I actually think Diana was one of them, because Diana Ogles was on
Oh,
the youth adult committee. So her husband is the one who um, is an
I know
electrical
this.
engineer. Okay. um, so we all went. It was in Birmingham, and I had actually emailed I don't know, just like the general yak email. And this was probably my first cold email. So I got started early. Um, and I asked about some really problematic practices that I had heard about from another district. And I was like, I just want to make sure that this isn't happening here because of my heritage, I'm not going to be involved in that. And I'm not going to call out other districts, but there were some really problematic regular practices that were um, if I were in the room, I would have called my dad and asked him to pick me up. Um, so the Reverend Julian Sharp responded to the email and was just like, I have never heard of that. Oh my God, that's not going to happen. Please don't think that this is that. This is going to be a totally fine, totally cool, like as racially competent as we possibly can be as teenagers in the early 2000s space. Um, and Julian actually met me at the door and personally welcomed me. I know for a fact that he won't remember that, but I do because it was me meeting him for the first time and seeing who he is as a person. He's the type of person who um, makes sure to give a real welcome. And that impacted me greatly. um, so, to the meat and potatoes of the story, we went to the maybe it's the Civil Rights Museum. It was a museum that would hit me in a very different way than basically all of the con goers. So I went through all by myself and tried not to be engaged in the conversation with people. And I was part of the first group to be done. We sat down in the lobby, and there were two very obviously queer boys in the group. One of them I knew, but like we weren't like best friends or anything. I just knew him. Um, and the other one I had just met. And, we're talking like pastel hair. There could have been some rainbows. I don't know. But they showed up in a way that city kids tend to. Um, and they decided to share a chair and look through a photo album. And we're just having a conversation. They weren't in a relationship. This is one person in a chair and one person sitting on the armrest. So this is a posture that is of familiarity. A Black security guard um, came over and told them that they couldn't do that here. They were enraged and just offering a lot of pushback, a lot of questioning. So the security guard called me over and tried to, like skin folk to skin folk, like, can you explain this to these people that you're in a group with? And I had like had a lot of pent up stuff going on. And I had never responded to a older person in this way. Like my parents raised me to be incredibly polite and respectful, but I verbally exploded. I was loud and going on about like, this is a civil rights museum. This is about overcoming oppression, and like you are acting as the oppressor in this situation. And um this is like a space of our shared heritage, and now you're like pointing fingers at people using your power to shame other people for their existence, and this is not what our community would want. Um, so we decided to just leave. that was that was the only option that felt like a good option. So we just headed out. Um, and these two youth were like, yeah, that was so cool. And I was having another moment. Um, if there had been any youth of color there for me to decompress with, this probably would have been a completely different story. Um, so we got back to the church, and in our very UU way, we sat in a big old circle and had a group talk back session. My first group talk back session that was kind of about me. Um, there was one youth who, and I'm going to try not to describe this person. um, so there was one youth who stood up and shared that who they are and that they're a lifelong UU, and just kind of stating how they belong in this space. They said that they were running for social action coordinator of the youth adult committee. And they said that my response to the security guard was not who we are. We're not like this. We don't show up in places and, not his words, but just like act a fool and get loud. And then he called my behavior urban. So the group exploded. Like it was, there were definitely different groups of thought. Some people were like, yeah, that's not who we are. And other people were like, I take a huge issue with everything you just said. And some people, of course, were like, can we just go hang out and have fun again? Um, I was quiet. I was just kind of processing everything on my own. And later that day was time for nominations. People could self-nominate, and so I did. I ran against that kid. And I said, I know I'm new, but I'm a lifelong UU. I've been in this game for a while, and y'all now know me. I might be quiet, but no one is going to harm you. No one is going to call you out for your identities without having to go through me. I think that would make me a good social action coordinator. And I won. The youth wanted someone who would show up and show out. So that was a really foundational moment, a really foundational year in my life, being the social action coordinator for the Mid-South District Youth Adult Committee. I was also doing leadership as a youth at the Mountain. I think that was my junior year of high school. I feel like I was away at a con at least once a month. Sometimes it was like every other week. I hosted at the largest congregation here in Atlanta. I hosted a social action con, and we had people come in to talk about self-care. Like we had an entire self-care track. I don't know what it was called. It was not called self-care. We had a someone coming in to talk about how to set up different groups at your school. We had people coming in from the community to talk about history, people talking about the future, people talking about protest activism, people talking about just like all the different ways that you can engage, how you can lead from the front lines, how you can lead from the back, how you can care for yourself, like how to live a full activist life. And I called it Connect and Resurrect. And yes, it had two U's, um, because Connect used to be a annual con for the Mid South District, and I was trying to resurrect that spirit. So that was my first call. And yeah, that was my first opportunity to really make UUism mine. That was a long story. That felt like
Yeah,
a dinner table story.
it was. It's why I always ask you at the dinner table. Um, but now my next question is just going to be, what advice or guidance do you have for this generation of youth leaders?
So I'm actually going to quote a sermon from another person that you've interviewed, Reverend Jonathan.
Oh, okay.
He said, get proximate. And that has followed me. I mean, he said that probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it was in like this, there's a much bigger lesson in the sermon. But yeah, I would say to y'all, get proximate, get in community, find your people. And if you can't find your people, look harder. They are there. I am here. If you need something intangible, find someone to give you to do a pastoral conversation with you and tease it out. If you have a tangible need, state it. If you have a longing, build the space that will house that. The thing about this faith is that it doesn't come prepackaged. One of the things that's so different about UU youth space from UU adult space is that in youth space, there is a bit of a container. There is a path to leadership, there's a path to self-exploration, and then you enter the like general UU space and it's just wide open. But you can take up that space there. I think a lot of people feel like they don't need faith, religion, especially one as intangible as ours. But there's beauty here because this is where some of the most passionate people that I know are. So you're going to need a space that will love you. And so get in that space, find/build that community. If you can't find it, please email me before you give up, and I will find someone who has a similar passion. Email the youth and young adult staff at the UUA. They will find someone to connect you with. They have way more resources than anyone would believe in network, in ideas, in history to dig into. Your people are here if you want them to be. So get proximate, get in community, send a cold email. We love that. And if you don't get a response, send another one.
Well, thank you for the interview, Mama.
You're welcome.
Great story. One of my favorites.